Agriculture in the Classroom seeks to improve student knowledge of agriculture by applying authentic, agricultural-based content as the context to teach core curriculum concepts in science, social studies, language arts, and nutrition. In an effort to further deepen the partnership from the grassroots, Cabinet Office directed Executive Office of the President on Tuesday the 17th of September 2024 that the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, and Forestry to establish a more robust framework for community-based forest associations to further empower local communities in forest conservation efforts. National Landscape and Ecosystem Restoration Strategy 2023 to 2032, which aims to plant 15 billion trees. Cabinet acknowledged with appreciation the growing partnership between the public and private sectors in advancing the tree planting campaign. Welcome to SUYA e-learning for food security, climate change, school feeding program, nutrition education for all. When you have bad governance and poor accountability from your local government leaders, then you are doomed to live under control of cartels and fools. We hope you subscribe to our channel YouTube at SUYA Mombasa and share this links with your friends or family.
Forest and Landscape Restoration, FLOR, provides a framework for implementing restorative interventions that collectively address major environmental challenges such as soil and land degradation, biodiversity loss, water scarcity, lack of sustainable rural livelihoods, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. It is estimated that, at present, the well-being of at least 3 billion people is affected by unsustainable human activities, including natural habitat conversion and loss of land productivity. Among these is the relation between large-scale tree planting and water availability at different scales. There are still many misconceptions and insufficient applied knowledge to elucidate to what extent, and under which environmental conditions, tree planting affects water availability.
Use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. A flourishing life on land is the foundation for our life on this planet. We are all part of the planet's ecosystem, and we have caused severe damage to it through deforestation, loss of natural habitats, and land degradation. Promoting a sustainable use of our ecosystems and preserving biodiversity is not a cause. It is the key to our own survival.
Head onto the streets. The generation of Kenyans born between 1997 and 2012, the Gen Zs, have borne the brunt of the country's slow economic growth. If a country has slow economic growth, it typically experiences higher unemployment rates, reduced income levels and decreased investments. It leads to an overall lower living standard. Over the last 10 years, between 2013 and 2023, Kenya's average growth rate has been 4.52%. This is less than half of the 10% growth rate that President Mwai Kibaki had envisaged in Vision 2030. The National Development Plan's goal was to transform Kenya into a middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens by the year 2030. But Kenya is still far from it.
As projections from the World Resources Institute for 2040 show, though, the problem is only due to become more widespread. Reporting by the Economist Intelligence Unit states, quickening urbanization population growth, climate change, and economic development are placing pressure on water systems. According to the outlook, 44 countries face either extremely high or higher water stress levels by 2040. As warned in The Economist's report, at the same time, rising sea levels place a growing number of geographies, particularly in East and Southeast Asia, at a higher risk of flooding, which can overwhelm sanitation systems and pollute drinkable water sources. Desertification is generally viewed as an advanced stage of land degradation. The UN has defined desertification as a diminution or destruction of the biological potential of the land, which can lead ultimately to desert-like conditions. Desertification can occur when extended periods of drought in arid, semi-arid, or dry subhumid areas, known as drylands, sap the land's productivity until it becomes dead soil. In addition, human activities often contribute to the process. While people have managed fragile dryland successfully for millennia in many parts of the world, pressure upon the land is much greater today as roughly 2 billion people inhabit drylands around the world. Climate change is a real and undeniable threat to our entire civilization. The effects are already visible and will be catastrophic unless we act now. Through education, innovation, and adherence to our climate commitments, we can make the necessary changes to protect the planet. These changes also provide huge opportunities to modernize our infrastructure, which will create new jobs and promote greater prosperity across the globe. Soil erosion is a gradual process of movement and transport of the upper layer of soil, topsoil, by different agents, particularly water, wind, and mass movement, causing its deterioration in the long term. Soil degradation spreads at an alarming rate, endangering land fertility and productivity, and, by extension, the world's food supply. Global food security, ecosystem health, and sustainable development are all at risk from soil degradation, which is a result of both human and natural factors. 34 African heads of state and government, along with scores of ministers and international partners, came together in Dakar to mobilize investment and move forward plans to harness Africa's immense agricultural potential. Technology is key to transformation. Many of the presidents at Dakar too said that technology was key to increasing farmer yields across Africa. Although 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land is in Africa, smallholders would not need to cut down forests if they were able to increase the productivity on their existing farms.
Standing success story.
Thank you very much. In Zimbabwe, we have adopted basic philosophy, which is village philosophy. One, we say a country must be ruled by the people of that country. Two, a country must be developed by the people of that country. Three, a country must eat what it kills. That is village wisdom. Now, in Zimbabwe, we have problems of food insecurity, and we said, how much food do we want per year to feed our country? We know we need about 2 million metric tons of grain. So we say, because there is climate change, how many hectares of land can we put under irrigation to produce the 2 million plus metric tons to feed the nation? And we determine how much yield does a hectare have. Once you've done that, you now know how many hectares you must put under irrigation to achieve the amount of grain you want to feed your nation in spite of climate change. That we have done, and we are now food secure. Secondly, we have been importing our wheat from Ukraine, our fertilizer from Russia. Now that side is problematic. So we decided to say we need about 240,000 metric tons of wheat So how many hectares do we want under irrigation to grow wheat? And we calculated and put that number of hectares under wheat. We are now wheat sufficient. And we believe that next season we should be able to export wheat. We got the fertilizer which we are getting from Russia. We decided to find out what makes fertilizer. We discovered that because of the colonial mentality, we thought fertilizer was produced elsewhere. We have the materials in the country, and 3-4 months ago we've begun producing our own fertilizer. Fourth, it is necessary that we harvest water. So
top surface area. The most active part of a soil particle is its surface area. A particle's surface is where nutrient exchange takes place. Sand particles have a small surface area relative to their mass, meaning they do not hold onto nutrients well. Clay particles have a large surface area relative to their mass, so a small amount of clay can add a significant amount of surface area to a soil, increasing the nutrient holding capacity. The amount of organic matter in the soil depends primarily on rainfall, air temperature, the kinds of plants that have been growing in a soil, management practices, soil temperature, and drainage. Soils that are tilled frequently are usually low in organic matter because tilling decreases residue particle size and increases the amount of air in the soil, increasing the rate of organic matter decomposition. With the removal of barriers to agricultural development aided by new investments, it is estimated that Africa's agricultural output could increase from $280 billion per year to $1 trillion by 2030. We celebrate the increased investment and the renewed commitment of governments to allocate 10% of public expenditure to agriculture. We applaud the resolve to escape from the shame of dependency on food imports and handouts. Water harvesting and storage. Water harvesting, WH, and small storage technologies are key water-related interventions with the potential to contribute to rapid improvements in the yields of rain-fed crops. WH and small storage technologies can also help provide water for domestic use, livestock, fodder and tree production, and, less commonly, fish and duck ponds. Food security policies. Governments can implement policies and legislation that promote food security and improve access to nutritious food, such as subsidies for small farmers and food assistance programs for vulnerable populations. Food security policies and legislation addresses food availability, improves access to food, promotes food safety, and builds resilience. Cities and countries on the edge. Today, more than 2 billion people lack access to clean drinking water, and another 2.7 billion face the reality of water scarcity for at least 1 month a year. A 2014 survey found that 25% of the world's 500 largest cities were already facing water stress, and the issue is only growing as the UN estimates that global demand for fresh water will outstrip supply by 40% in 2030. This scenario is not far off in the future, and it is not isolated to any single corner of the globe. The threat of day zero reflects a worldwide pattern of increasing stress on water resources, exacerbated by climate change. Over the last 2 decades, there has been a 134% increase in floods and a 29% increase in droughts around the globe. Benefits of rainwater harvesting. Rainwater harvesting offers several benefits in Kenya, where water scarcity and climate change poses significant challenges. Improved water security. Rainwater harvesting reduces dependency on groundwater and surface water sources, ensuring efficient water during dry seasons and droughts. Agricultural productivity. By providing a consistent water source, rainwater harvesting improves crop yields and supports livestock, contributing to food security. Economic benefits. Rainwater harvesting lowers water bills and reduces the need for expensive water infrastructure. Climate change adaptation. As climate change exacerbates water scarcity, rainwater harvesting helps communities adapt and build resilience.
The arid counties include Baringo, Garissa, Isiolo, Mandera, Marsabit, Samburu, Tana River, Turkana, Wajir. The semi-arid ones are Embu, Kajiado, Kilifi, Kitwe, Kwale, Laikipia, Lamu, Makueni, Meru, Narok, Nairi, Taita Taveta, Tarakaniti, and West Pokot. The National Drought Early Warning System also indicates that outbreak of Rift Valley fever, abnormal abortion among goats and other notifiable livestock diseases in Marsabit, Wajir, Marsabit, Samburu, Kajiado, Narok and Mandera counties continue to affect livestock production. Access to water resources improved slightly in terms of trekking distances to an average of 6 kms for both livestock and domestic sources. Livestock prices across all species remained stable while cereal prices improved marginally, stabilizing the purchasing power of households. Malnutrition rates in Garissa, Samburu, Turkana, Tana River, Kwale, Makueni, Tarakaniti and West Pokot counties require close monitoring.
A tropical rainforest climate or equatorial climate is a tropical climate usually found within 10° to 15° latitude of the equator. About a band of 850 miles upwards from equator and below equator. Meru on the northeastern slopes of Mount Kenya receives about 1,320 millimeters of rain per year, while Nairi on southwestern Kenya only receives 737 millimeters a year.
Around the world, disasters are producing unprecedented levels of damage and loss in agriculture. According to FAO's new Impact of Disasters on Agriculture and Food Security 2023 report, disasters are increasing in severity and frequency. While in the 1970s, the world experienced
There will come a time when only those that know how to plant will be eating. Chief Oran Lions. If you like African food systems content, please subscribe and share our channel with your friends and family. Or if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you make sure to never miss our weekly presentation podcast. Agriculture is tool to create health, wealth, shelter, protect environment, food, nutrition and basic skills development for our local communities. Water holding capacity is controlled primarily by soil texture and organic matter. Soils with smaller particles, silt and clay, have a larger surface area than those with larger sand particles, and a large surface area allows a soil to hold more water. In other words, a soil with a high percentage of silt and clay particles, which describes fine soil, has a higher water holding capacity. Water availability is illustrated in the figure by water levels in 3 different soil types. Excess or gravitational water drains quickly from the soil after a heavy rain because of gravitational forces, saturation point to field capacity. Plants may use small amounts of this water before it moves out of the root zone. First uses of flood irrigation. The earliest technique of flood irrigation goes back over 8,000 years when it was known to be used in Egypt and Mesopotamia, circa 6000 BC. The River Nile in Egypt flooded its banks for several months every year. Local farmers took advantage of this natural phenomenon by diverting the floodwaters to nearby fields to irrigate their crops. It allowed them to grow crops on a much grander scale than would otherwise have been possible.
चालीस इंच का एक बेड और 16 इंच के 2 बेड प्रॉपर एक प्रेस के साथ और निशान लगाने के साथ, ये निशान ज़रियात जो है ये पेश करते हैं हमारे लिए ये प्लांटर। लोधरा में इनकी शॉप है, आगे आपको एड्रेस भी पीछे भी लिखा हुआ है, आगे दोबारा आ गया। तो ये आप प्लांटर देख रहे हैं, इसमें हम 2 इकट्ठे करके 42 इंच का भी बना सकते हैं। ये आप देख रहे हैं नीचे 42 इंच का और ऊपर 16 इंच के दरमियान में एक छोटा 10 इंच का पानी का चैनल आ जाएगा। ये आप 16 इंच के 2 देख रहे हैं और दरमियान वाला ये 10 इंच का पानी का चैनल। ये आप देख रहे हैं 3 लाइन लगा रहा है। ये हाई डेंसिटी पे प्रॉपर डिस्टेंस प्लांट टू प्लांट, रो टू रो प्रॉपर डिस्टेंस रखेगा और ये आप निशान लगा देखते जा रहे हैं। अब ये बेसिकली मेन इसका इस्तेमाल लहसुन और जो है प्याज, इन दोनों के लिए, दोनों फसलों के लिए निशान लगाने का सबसे बड़ा मकसद ये कि लेबर का, एक तो जो एक्सपर्ट लेबर होती है वो तो एक अंदाज़ा रखती है, लेकिन उनका भी कंप्यूटराइज तो अंदाज़ा नहीं ना आता। अब ये फिक्स प्लांट टू प्लांट डिस्टेंस जो तकरीबन 4 इंच या 6 इंच जितना भी आप रखवाना चाहते हैं वो रखा जा रहा है। तो एक तो जिस जगह पे किसी ने कोई सीड या जो है आपकी सीडलिंग प्याज की वो ना लगी होगी तो हमें पता चल जाएगा कि इस जगह पे मजदूर ने ये काम नहीं किया, ये खाली छोड़ गया। वैसे निशान के बगैर हो तो हमें पता नहीं चलता। और ये देख रहे हैं आप कितना बराबर प्रेस हो रहा है। इस पर आप मल्चिंग करना चाहें तो आसानी से मल्चिंग हो जाती है। जो हमारे वैसे हम मक्की वाले प्लांटर यूज़ करते हैं उससे ऊपर वाली खेल बराबर नहीं होती। उससे क्या होता है कि जो ऊपर हम हाई डेंसिटी पे अगर जाते हैं, ये अगर 2 तो साइड पे लगाएं तो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर हाई डेंसिटी पे जाते हैं तो वो हमारा सही प्रॉपर ड्रेनेज, प्रॉपर पानी की जो सीपेज है वो सिस्टम सही नहीं हो पाता। अभी ये आप दोबारा देख रहे हैं 16 इंच, अब ये 42 इंच का हमने स्टार्ट कर दिया। अभी ये 42 इंच का बन रहा है।
The Kenya Kwanza Manifesto unveiled its platform with agriculture given top priority, with the main drive being agriculture transformation and inclusive growth. The manifesto notes that Kenya Kwanza will implement significant changes in the agriculture industry as well as food production, including rigorous price restrictions and the provision of farming equipment. They will also give neglected regions and crops the policy and financial support they deserve. They will also give neglected regions and crops the policy and financial support they deserve. Kenya Kwanza promises to invest at least KSHS 250 billion in 2023 to 2027 in order to be more production-oriented and cut back on capital-intensive infrastructure finance. Maintain mostly aerobic soil conditions by balancing the availability of water and oxygen in the soil to avoid the suffocation and degeneration of rice plant roots as well as of soil organisms such as bacteria and earthworms. Build up the soil's fertility by A. Enhancing soil organic matter to nourish the plants and soil biota, and B. Maintaining the soil in mostly aerobic condition. In lowland areas, CA promotes the system of permanent raised beds for growing irrigated or rain-fed wetland rice without disturbing the soil, or disturbing it only once. Forming raised beds initially requires a non-trivial expenditure of labor and/or capital if construction is mechanized, but this is a one-time expenditure that leads subsequently to lower expenditure for both labor and fossil fuel. Furrow irrigation uses furrows between planted ridges. Fields may be of various shapes. First, the soil is prepared into vertical channels, furrows, and planting mounds. Then, water is released directly into each furrow, running down the furrow's length and seeping into the soil at the root level. Although furrows can be longer when the land slope is steeper, the maximum recommended furrow slope is 0.5% to avoid soil erosion. Furrows can also be level and are thus very similar to long narrow basins. However, a minimum grade of 0.05% is recommended so that effective drainage can occur following irrigation or excessive rainfall. If the land slope is steeper than 0.5%, then furrows can be set at an angle to the main slope or even along the contour to keep furrow slopes within the recommended limits. Furrows can be set in this way when the main land slope does not exceed 3%. Beyond this, there is a major risk of soil erosion following a breach in the furrow system. On steep land, terraces can also be constructed, sea basin irrigation, and furrows cultivated along the terraces. Half-moons are berms in the shape of a semicircle used to capture and retain water and nutrients so they can be used by newly planted trees or existing trees. Half-moons are also known as boomerang or the smile the berms because of their shape, while in francophone areas they are known as demi-lunes. What are the advantages of bund formation? Their principle is comparably simple. By building bunds along the contour lines, water runoff is slowed down, which leads to increased water infiltration and enhanced soil moisture. Using different designs, bunds are applicable to even and uneven grounds, with a gentle slope of up to 5%. Water bunds, or as we also like to call them, earth smiles, are semicircular shaped pits that capture rainwater. Water bunds are dug on slopes, with the closed side of the earth smile directing downhills. This way they can capture the water running downhills. What is a water bund? Water bunds are semicircular shaped pits that capture rainwater. They are dug in our project areas in Africa to capture rainwater that will otherwise get washed away over the dry, barren soil. How many types of bunds are there? Contour bunds, semicircular bunds, lateral bunds, supplemental bunds, marginal bunds, shoulder bunds. What are the different types of trenches in soil and water conservation? The trenches are constructed in different geometrical configurations, namely contour trenching, continuous trenching, staggered trenching, and inline trenching. The selection of trenches depends on the site characteristics and rainfall intensity. What are staggered trenches used for? Staggered contour trenches under Monrega conserve water. Staggered contour trench technique is useful in slowing surface water runoff and soil erosion from sloping land, and in revegetating degraded land. What are parallel trenches? The parallel trenches were connected by a series of communication trenches dug roughly perpendicular to them. The first row was fronted by barbed wire and contained machine gun emplacements. The rear trenches housed most of the troops.
This is the contour bund. When you are making bunding, when soil is fresh, they dig and they put over here. It is on contour. So immediately most of the bunding, what happens, once the rain comes and it enters two sides, the slopes are very steep, so that all the soil will get eroded and wash away. So that you have to don't keep like this, just you flatten this, you increase the top width of the bund. The top width of the bund, just you make a flatten. If the water comes, it doesn't fall and goes off. It will fall impound into the soil, and it will percolate faster. And if you plant them, and immediately you have to plant with some grasses, which is a vegetative measures are always better instead of going for some putting stones and other things. But subsequently we can have a plantation. But this is one of the very good. Immediately you can introduce some. This is a stylosynthesis hemata, which is very good, fast growing, and it's a grass, but it's a very good nutritious for the fodder, and they can cut and carry and give it to the cattle. No more grazing, and just you have to broadcast like this. So the advantage of this stylo is a perennial and the leguminous, and it's almost all is a good biomass and ground cover, and your lot of fodder is available for the animals, and it grows very faster. It will keep the soil check the soil erosion, and the root system will be intact with the soil. That will just after applying the seed here, just mix with some soil, so they will germinate faster, and the maximum for germination it will take 2 or 3 days, which means even there is a heavy rain also, the bund will not wash away, and it will keep intact, and the bund will get consolidated through grasses. The root functioning is very, very important in the fields, because the advantage with this is a leguminous. Since it's leguminous, next to that you can plant some papaya and some mango or whatever the plants you want, and that will be perennial, and it will cover all area with no barren soil can be seen. I think that is the advantage of this. It's a very good seed. So you can introduce like this, just you leave it sprinkle some water, I think, so that it will come automatically. If there is no water, just you wait for some rain.
An A-frame is a tool used to mark out the contours, or level lines, on sloped land. It's a simple, accurate tool that's often used by smallholder farmers to construct contours on hillsides or slopes. A-frames are useful for establishing level contours, building drainage ditches, constructing hillside farming systems, and building garden beds that harvest rainwater and flow with the landscape. A-frame, a tool used to identify the contour of the land. Often used by smallholder farmers from materials found within their local community. Calibrate, to ensure an instrument is measuring accurately. In this case, to ensure the A-frame accurately captures the contour of a landscape. A-frame level, an essential tool for swale building. Swales are passive water harvesting earthworks, aka berm and basin or swale, that also help prevent soil erosion and serve as a foundation for building biodiversity on a property. With drought conditions getting worse over the past few years and our current methods of irrigation being unsustainable, most any property could benefit from the addition of swales. Fanya-dew terrace farming is a landscape restoration technique that involves digging ditches and throwing soil up along the contours of a slope to create embankments. The name Fanya-dew is Kiswahili for throw the soil up. The goal of Fanya-dew terraces is to prevent soil erosion and water loss, and to make the land more suitable for growing plants. There will come a time when only those that know how to plant will be eating. Chief Oran Lions. If you like African food systems content, please subscribe and share our channel with your friends and family. Or if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you make sure to never miss our weekly presentation podcast. Agriculture is tool to create health, wealth, shelter, protect environment, food, nutrition and basic skills development for our local communities.